This episode of Sewing Out Loud is brought to you by Baby Lock. ZD and I sew on Baby Lock sewing machines and sergers every day. Baby Lock is the perfect long-term sewing companion. Their machines are reliably built, and the company is on the cutting edge of sewing technology. Just wait until later in the episode when we tell you about how you can use the camera on your phone to achieve perfect embroidery placement.
Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of ZD Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, ZD and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
And I'm ZD Donahue.
Oh, I didn't show you. I have a new notebook.
Oh, surprise. You know, sometimes I'm out and I see a book and I'm like, oh, I should get this for Mallory. This is a really
She's already bought it for herself.
No, and then I'm like, why would I buy her a notebook? She has all of them.
Well, I'm trying to really justify it and like fill them up, like the ones I have.
Even if you just put like bullshit in them.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Now we're gonna have to mark this podcast explicit because my crazy notebook habit. Oh my gosh! And I just bumped the microphone a couple times.
I guess I could. Okay. I should have said BS.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, here,
but you can say bull crap and nobody gets upset.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Someone can always get upset.
People
right?
get upset if you say kitty cat. So like, I don't worry about upsetting people
I have a new
anymore.
notebook. So if inspiration strikes during this podcast,
what does that say on there?
It says standard issue notebook number 3. It's by DesignWorks Inc. It is a super cool notebook. Anyway, okay. But you could use a notebook to keep track of all of the
your pen slot.
Yeah,
okay.
all of the great ideas you get on Sewing Out Loud, all right?
Oh, you mean someone? Look at that little thing.
I told you. I'll put a picture of the notebook in the show notes.
But that little thing in the front.
You can look at it later,
yeah,
Mom.
I know. I'm
making
impressed.
fun of me, and now you want it. Okay,
I know.
all right.
Well, I didn't know what it was.
Moving on, decorative threads in the Serger.
Shouldn't
dive right into
make
it.
snap decisions.
That's right. We're gonna dive right in. We have done a podcast about this sort of before, but we're just gonna get really specific about it. And then I told Mom that I get worried that we'll repeat ourselves on a podcast.
Because we never repeat ourselves. Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I don't know if you all are Malcolm Gladwell fans, but I am. And he has told the same story 5 different times in 5 different publications. And so I'm just saying, if Malcolm Gladwell can do it, then so can
you
ZD
think
and
we
Mallory.
should have the same license?
Yes. I mean, we're of the same.
Well, okay, here's the deal. We are not scripted. So
Nope.
Obviously it won't be exactly the same.
That's
and
right.
Some of it will be repetitive. And here's how I can justify this. Repeating information helps you retain it.
That's
it
right.
helps you know it better. And I mean, I will often listen to something more than once or read something more than once so I can learn it better.
Absolutely.
Right?
I just did the same thing. I just re-listened to some audiobooks.
I mean, I know, if I learn a new trick in Ariel, I have to do it
again.
I do it 10 times in a row, so I make sure I really have it.
Okay,
Yeah.
the reason that this got brought up again is someone posted in the group a picture of a display of DMC pearl cotton.
Right.
I believe it was number 8, which is the size. A size that we love to use.
So did we tell them what this was about yet?
Yeah, I said decorative threads on the
You
Serger.
did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone posted a thing and they were like, "Hey, ZD and Mallory, what size do you use?" I was like, "That's it, buy it."
Right.
And then all these people commented, and we're
what's
like,
this about?
What are you talking about?
You can use this on your Serger?
And I said, "Oh yeah, decorative edge," and they were like, "You have to show me a picture because I have no idea what you're talking about." And I thought, well, all right, and this was exciting because we freaking love this. Sewing with this stuff, So anyway, yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that people said that they were unfamiliar with it.
So they wanted the information.
Yes, they wanted the information.
So whether they're podcast listeners or not, who knows?
They should
become one.
Okay, so why don't we talk a little bit? ZD gets annoyed when people say things like, "Oh, my Serger has a decorative stitch and yours does not," or when people try to say this Serger has more decorative stitches than another Serger.
No, I have seen reviews in sewing magazines, like valid sewing magazines that have been published for decades, that say, and this Serger has a decorative stitch.
Or they'll have a comparison thing, and I'll say decorative stitch.
Right. Decorative stitch will be one of the categories, and I'm, okay, or programmable stitches. It doesn't have that either, just so you know.
Well, there is one serger now that kind of has programmable, but it's not automatic. Okay,
right.
We'll get into what
right.
happened in the Facebook group there because I banned someone.
Yeah, you really did get mad at somebody.
I did. Okay.
Just remember, if we get mad at you, it's our group.
That's right. Too bad. Okay. So a decorative stitch.
There are many other groups. So people will find their place.
In ZD land, there are really no decorative serger stitches.
No, you make them decorative.
You make them decorative with your thread. Now,
but there's no fancy decorative stitch like in a sewing machine where it's programmed to go in a different direction or make a little bicycle.
You're saying it's apples and oranges. This term really shouldn't be used in serger world.
I don't think decorative stitch should be. You shouldn't say that a serger has a decorative stitch in it. I'm saying you can make decorative effects with your serger.
Yes,
that's what you can do.
Now, what about the wave stitch on the baby locks? Would you call that a decorative stitch?
Well, I can do that on any.
You can do it on any serger
if you know how to. Right.
Yes.
You could call it a decorative stitch.
That's the only one.
It's still an edge stitch. It's not really functional.
It's not as functional as the other ones.
Right. I would not make a seam with it.
Right.
And yes,
except for that flat lock.
You get that one flat lock seam. That's right. But it still comes out to be like an effect, a decorative effect. But I just don't think the term should be used there because
I get it.
It leads people to believe, like I said, you can make little cherries or bicycles or something with your serger, and you can't.
So that's where ZD is coming
from.
Well,
I guess you could be really hard, though.
We could have a debate on this or something, but when
for our purposes, we're saying sergers do not have decorative stitches, and if you see
except the wave stitch, maybe.
Yeah. Now, okay. Baby Lock has a wave stitch that you can flip a couple knobs and turn, and
thread it funny.
And thread it a certain way with, you skip this and go over one and whatever. And Baby Lock has that, okay? And they show you that in their owner's manual.
But the way
as a whole, if you see like we said, a comparison of what sergers have decorative stitches and what don't, that invalidates the whole thing to me.
There you
go. Don't believe that. Go to one that doesn't say that.
The way that we are decoratively stitching on our sergers is by using these fun threads.
Right.
And if you buy a book that's like decorative serging techniques and da-da-da-da-da, that's what it is.
Right.
It's messing with the threads. It's using the same
we did
stitches.
that on our sewing machines.
Yeah.
Years ago. We couched over threads or whatever, or put, two different color threads someplace and loosened a tension here or there, but there were no decorative stitches programmed into that machine.
Okay. So there's that definition by us. Now, let's get
definitions by Mallory and
ZD. By Mallory and ZD. Okay.
That could be a dangerous book.
So what we're doing in order to get decorative edges on our machines is we're using, and not just decorative edges, but let's start there. Let's talk about, kind of one of the ways we like to use this pearl cotton. What we're doing is we're using a stitch that's just that overcasting stitch that you do on the serger, but we're using a thick thread.
Right.
So here's another Mallory ZD. I'm totally co-opting this. I mean, I'm adding my name. ZD made these definitions before I was around. So just FYI.
Oh, well, you'll carry them on after I'm dead.
I'm the heir. Okay. This next definition is non-needle threads. So.
And we had to make this term sort of up.
Yeah.
Just when we had our brick and mortar store, because we would have decorative threads and we would have construction threads, we would have bobbin threads, we would have embroidery threads, and then we had these threads that wouldn't go through a needle, but they were used in decorative instances, and we used them for many things, but they would not go through a needle.
A machine needle.
Yeah, a sewing machine needle.
Sewing machine or serger needle.
Right. So it won't go through the eye of a sewing machine or serger needle, okay?
Yeah.
So I finally made this department, I guess.
You made a little section.
A little section in the store, and we referred to it as the non-needle threads. And part of it was it made it easier for us to direct people to them.
Yeah.
Because we gave a lot of classes on this.
Well, and
a lot of classes.
You know, I did have a person occasionally be like, so I need to stitch green, stitching on this item. Oh, and they'd come up to me with the pearl cotton, and they were going to do it with the sewing machine. I was like, oh no, this is not appropriate.
Unless they could have couched.
Yeah,
right.
They could have couched, but so they were going to machine embroider it or something.
Right. So some of these threads were never meant to go through a machine needle, are meant to be used on a sewing machine.
That's right.
Most of these were like hand, it was handwork. It was a hand needle with a big eye.
And when we
mentioned like a crewel needle, or to tat with, or to crochet with, or
when we mention these threads, or when we talk to people about them, or show people the threads in the store, sometimes they'd be like, oh, I just inherited a bunch of tatting supplies. I have a bunch of these. We're like, great, wonderful. So yes, that is, these probably were more traditionally, handwork threads. So that number 8 pearl cotton, we would sell it in those balls. I think it was like a 6-ounce or ball or something like that is what they called it. But let's talk about the thread weight. Mm-hmm. Number 8 is...
That's as large as...
No, that's not as large as we would go. We've gone larger, haven't we?
I have never gone larger.
Through the looper?
Never. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. We got number 6 over there. You've used it.
But not pearl cotton.
Well... But it's other. I was just saying the size.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I thought we were getting pearl cotton specific.
We were just doing
for a minute.
Well, here, number 8 pearl cotton. 8 refers to the weight, is what I wanted.
Right.
What I wanted to say. It is I think the best thread to start out with when you're trying to get into decorative thread on the serger like this.
Yes, and I think there's a couple reasons. It's easy to work with. It's not real expensive.
Right.
It comes in
oh my gosh, so many colors.
Boatload of colors, and it comes in variegated colors. So, you can purchase this and not feel really bad if it doesn't turn out like you want or something like that.
Yeah.
Or and they're also good where they're very good thread because they're bulky. And they cover really well.
Right.
So not only is it inexpensive, but you can use a long stitch length and get good coverage over the edge, because it's going to go over the edge because you're putting these in your looper.
Not
because they're a non-needle thread.
You're not putting them in your needles. Yeah. So we I'll just mention this. I think the reason I thought we'd talked about this so in depth is we did a Zigzagger live broadcast about this.
Oh, is that what we did?
Yes, we did a really big one. We got out all our threads. We gave all our tips on it and everything. And so anyway, number 8 pearl cotton's a good size. When you start to get larger than this, so what I was pointing behind my shoulder
and larger means what would the number, if I have a number 8, what number would be larger than my number 8?
Like 6 or 4.
So the number goes down, but as the weight goes up.
That's right.
And if you want to think about this is, say, if you have, say you have a playpen and you have...
I don't know where you're going. I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
So you have a playpen.
Okay.
And you have 8 little babies, and 8 little babies fit in this playpen.
Okay.
Right? But then I took my 8 little babies out of the playpen, and a playpen is like a little pin you put kids in, right? So those were like my newborns.
Okay.
And then they got to be 3 months old, and they got bigger, and I could only fit 6 babies in the playpen.
This is great.
Okay.
And then
they even got
bigger,
and then I could only fit 3 babies in the playpen, or 4, whatever.
Yeah.
So. It's that.
It's a gauge. Yeah.
It's a gauge, right? It's not like it.
Mom, that was great.
Did you like that?
Lovely.
Did you like that? So on my size 8, right, I can get 8 little babies in. On my size 6, it's gotten bigger. The baby's got bigger, and I can only fit 6 of them.
The baby's got bigger, yeah. Okay, so you got this number 8 pearl cotton.
Yeah, what an analogy. Okay. Gee, who thought that up? Okay.
You can have these other sizes. We talked about kind of embroidery floss and embroidery like yarns. Okay, I think worsted weight yarn is like 4.
You can get a 4 through there. Is that what you're saying? What do you mean?
I'm saying that it's equivalent to a 4 weight thread. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then there are different yarns. Like Sam had hand dyed a bunch of yarns.
Right.
And some of her lighter weight stuff, like fingering weight.
Right.
And then, of course, there's like sock yarn and da-da-da-da-da. Those all worked.
Right.
In the serger.
Right.
Okay, so yarn is fuzzier, though.
Right.
Than this pearl cotton. And I mean, it depends on the yarn, of course. The yarn.
So what would you do to really find out what worked in your serger?
I would test
That's
with
right.
all my little sized babies in my playpen.
That's right.
But I just want to say, you can get creative with this, but a really great place to start out with. And, we were one of the only places in town that carried this stuff.
Right.
And crocheters would find out we carried it and come in and buy it. And then the other people would be like, what are you carrying this for? And then we'd show them and they'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Okay. So let's take a little break and let's come back and talk about actually putting these non-needle threads into your machine and talk about the results you get from it and how freaking awesome they are, okay?
Okay. Mallory, I'm always impressed with baby lock machines, and I always think, this is the best. You can't get better than this. And then guess what happens?
They make it better.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what happens? Okay, they put a camera on their highest end machine, right?
Right.
So let me repeat this. There is a camera on the machine.
Yes, and I can take a picture of my manicure if I want.
Yes. So they put a camera on the machine so you can scan what you're going to embroider, da-da-da. But then what they did now, they've made the technology even more accessible. Okay.
Okay. So, how can they impress me?
Well, instead of having the machine with the camera on it, if you don't have that machine, the new Altair and Meridian machines let you use an app on your smartphone to transfer a picture of your project wirelessly to the machine so that you can have this perfect positioning on other machines as well. So not only, they've just made the technology even more accessible to everybody.
I'm like living
in a fantasy world
in the future.
Yes, the future is now.
The future has happened. I have a communicator on my wrist.
That's right.
That's
right.
Okay, so I don't know how much more I can be impressed.
Yeah, I think that the launch of the new baby lock machines right now in 2019 might be more impressive than the Apple releases that are going on. So if you want to see these machines in person, you can go to babylock.com and you can use their retailer locator to go see a machine at a dealer. And that's another thing, of course, we love about baby locks, right? Are their fabulous dealers. They're independent retailers. So yeah, and then I guess we've gotten to a place, maybe the closest we're going to get to Baby Lock naming a machine after you.
What?
Yes.
They named a machine ZD?
Yeah, so not quite. They have the new Altair and Meridian that are, the machines that work with that perfect positioning app. But now they have a machine called the Ariel as well. So
you mean like Ariel in the sky,
A-E-R,
not like Ariel the mermaid.
AERIAL.
That would be as close as maybe I'm gonna get.
All right. So once again, go to babylock.com, check out that retailer locator, and check out the wonderful videos they have that show you what the heck we're talking about with this perfect positioning app on your smartphone.
I continue to be impressed.
Yes. Sewing out loud. And we're back. All right. What happens when you put the stuff in your machine? Maybe we should have started with that. I don't know. Too late now. What?
I don't know. You took the lead, and I'm trying to follow. I'm trying to follow.
Started off talking about a notebook. Okay. That's the kind
because
of day,
we never have tangents.
That's the kind of day it is. When you put these thicker threads in your loopers, okay, imagine listener, if you're driving in the car, or you're mowing the lawn or whatever, you can picture your overlock stitch right now, okay? Picture a 3-thread, either wide or narrow. Your 3-thread overlock stitch has a needle thread, an upper looper thread, and a lower looper
thread.
Okay?
And both looper threads, upper and lower, wrap the edge of the fabric.
Okay, so we'll talk about all of your options later on, but you can put these thick threads in both the upper and lower looper.
That's correct.
So what you're going to get is you can get a very filled in look with these threads that you can't get from your traditional serger thread.
Correct.
And serger thread is thinner even than normal construction thread, right? For a good reason, which we've covered several times before. If we have to do another podcast about that, that's fine. But so let's say you do a stitch length of 2.5 with normal serger thread. Okay, you're probably going to see, a fine bit of fabric between those threads that are laying down. If you do a 2.5 length with pearl cotton, you might get what looks like a pretty filled in edge. You're almost going to get like a blanket stitch look. Okay, so I just want to tell them.
A satin stitch.
A satin stitch, like this finished.
Okay, no, I think what you
like
said
that
might have been
blanket?
confusing. A blanket stitch would be wide and open. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, okay, I'll yield to that. That's fine. Satin stitch is fine. Okay.
No. But what I'm saying,
fine.
you can get something that looks like a blanket stitch, which is
different. Yes.
Okay. I think I don't want to confuse anybody.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, go ahead then about the blanket stitch.
Well, a blanket stitch would be when you had room in between, and you can do that with this thread.
Right.
And it looks like you've done maybe a hand edge on a blanket, right?
Right.
If you get it closer together and there's no fabric showing, then you have that satin look, the satin stitch look.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Those would be the two different looks.
Okay.
And any variation in between.
Yes. Okay, so you are going to play with this. I think what ZD and I talked about a lot in the Zigzagger group when we showed many different samples at different lengths was that different fabrics are going to react differently.
Right.
Different threads are going to react differently. And you are going to change your stitch length to get whatever type of coverage you want on the edge of your fabric.
And you could also do this just in, say, the upper looper and have a regular serger thread on the bottom, so you only have the decorative stitch on top. Now, why would I do that? Well, what if I'm making like a placemat and I want the back to lay flat?
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want that build up on the back of my project. I just want it on the top, or a flap on a purse, or I'm just
like the edge of a skirt where it's like you don't want your more expensive thread on the inside.
Right. Well, that's true too.
You
don't have to waste or use it where it's not seen, or you just don't. Some reason you don't want that bulk on the backside.
Right. Yeah. So you could reduce bulk. You could save a few pennies by not doing that. And so when you are when you're doing these decorative edges, the type of stitch that we would recommend is like whatever looks good, but we're huge fans of the 3-thread narrow, okay? But this is a place where we would use the 3-thread wide a lot of the time.
Often.
Because it gives you a wider stitch to show off
and
that
you get
thread.
to see that thickness.
Yeah.
It is substantial enough that it doesn't like pull away from the fabric.
Yeah.
Because it's heavier and thicker, and you don't have this thin thread
loopy.
I always called them toe catchers
because
like you put your toe, put your toe through your hem or whatever and catches the thread. But so yes, they are going to react differently for you. So you need to think about that. The other thing we've done, and I don't know if I'm going to confuse people on this, is put that. So go ahead and put the pearl cotton through the looper and maybe add like a metallic thread with it, which is thinner, and that works. Or even add a color thread through there, because maybe you don't have quite the color you want and it needs to have a little bit more of a green tone or a yellow tone. You could add that.
So
thread.
ZD's talking about putting 2 threads through one looper.
One looper. Mm-hmm.
This is where you can get out your machine embroidery threads too.
Right.
Oh, maybe before we move on to that, I just wanted to say we probably wouldn't recommend a 4th thread for these applications because it just interrupts the
I mean, if you want to try it. But what it's going to happen is you're going to see that needle thread,
punching into that
punching right down the middle of that, stitch.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary.
I mean, I've done it to see what it looked like.
And you
might. What if you want to make that a metallic thread or something?
Design detail.
It could be a design detail. Yeah. But oftentimes when we're making what we call an edge like that,
right?
We are not using that right thread. We go with the biggest distance from the blade with the left needle thread.
Normally we're using the 3 thread wide. So ZD was talking about combining threads, metallic threads, and that is one type of thread we didn't mention earlier is there are like metallic flosses, and
right?
Razzle Dazzle or Candlelight or whatever you're going to find out there that are actually marketed as Serger yarns,
and those are needle threads often.
Sometimes.
Wait, which one is? Candlelight is not.
Was it Razzle Dazzle or was it called something else?
Well, Razzle Dazzle might be similar to the other one. Those two are very similar.
Well,
it's a different company.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is you could put a needle type thread, like an embroidery, metallic embroidery thread, say, and you could put it through that same looper with that floss. Or you could put a variegated embroidery thread through there. These are all effects you can go for. And if you do this, make yourself samples and keep them. Yeah, and write down what you did.
I definitely
because you want to make a quick baby blanket or some gift or something, or edge something real fast. You have this to go for.
If you are a person who has a lot of colors of serger thread, I'd say try some out in your needle to see. So when you're choosing needle thread, give those a shot.
Right.
If you're a person who doesn't have a lot of serger threads, but you do have machine embroidery threads, if it's a decorative edge that's not receiving any stress, use that embroidery thread in your needle on your serger.
Especially if it's polyester, it'll definitely be strong enough.
I mean, we have so many colors of serger thread that we can often match these decorative edges.
Right.
But if someone doesn't have that library and they've got others,
some of your quilting threads that are a little bit thicker, they can go in there too. So you can combine these things. Now, the other thing is, like Mallory said, with your needle thread, is you can make it not obvious, so you can match, or you can want an obvious. So are you matching the fabric? Are you matching the thread? Those are all choices. Those are all design choices. So you have all these choices.
Oh, yeah.
Just because we brought up the fact that you can make your serger do a decorative effect.
Right.
By changing a thread.
And so you get 3 different threads to mess around with, which is kind of fun. Okay.
Which you can make 5 threads by just, adding 2 more to the loopers and sistering them together.
You mentioned a flannel baby blanket, which was like kind of like flannel on one side, satin on the other.
We used to do
real popular
flannel on one side, satin, or even sometimes cotton on the other side. And we embroider the name, on the one side, usually the flannel side, before we sandwiched them.
Yeah, right.
So that you wouldn't see the back of the embroidery. And then we would go around that sucker with, making our pretty edge. And it was so pretty.
Yes.
And so easy. And people really liked it.
So when you're working with 2 fabrics like that, probably you're going to want to get as much coverage as possible.
Right.
Get that thread as close together as possible, right? But you don't want it to, one of the dangers here, is it could pile up on you. So I'd say when you're testing these things out, to be real safe, you could start at like a 3. 3 in length, you could stitch a few stitches. Then you can go down.
Right.
Stitch a few stitches. Now, on the baby lock...
When she says go down, she means go down in stitch length.
On the baby lock, I can be on 3 for an inch or 2, and then I can just stop stitching and lower my length to 2.5 to 2. So you got to find that sweet spot.
So this is stitch length, everybody, not tension.
No,
stitch length.
Just stitch length. So I don't want people to go like start on a 1. On your serger.
Yeah, start with a bigger space than you think.
Now,
and try it. You're going to get used to this. You're going to get used to the technique, but play it safe. In the beginning, and again, here's your sample. This is what it looks like when I have it on. A 4. This is what it looks like on 3. This is what it looks like on 2, or whatever. I have those samples. They're here.
Absolutely.
We used to show them to customers all the time.
Well, the one sample, and we showed it in the Zigzagger broadcast.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be like 20 years old, right?
That's right.
Like, I mean, it's real old. And then I wanted to say, so for the, a satin and flannel combo or like wovens like that, you want that close coverage. But on something that's not going to fray at all.
Right.
Like, you're going to finish the edge of an ultra suede something or a fleece. I know, Mom, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is it all right?
Yeah.
A fleece blanket, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can lengthen that stitch.
And that's where I'm saying you get that blanket stitch look. Where you get space between them.
Someone gave me a watch one time, okay?
Because you showed
I
her.
showed them
she
this.
did. She gave her the watch off of her arm. She didn't go buy her a watch.
She was like,
Mallory said, "What a nice watch," and or whatever.
So she came to me. Her name is Lynn. Okay, Lynn came to me and she said, "Mallory, I just trying to do a blanket stitch on these." She's just doing 1 layer of fleece, and I think she even said, she goes, "I know you guys hate fleece, but I want to make these for Christmas, and I just want to."
Hillary made a bunch for Christmas one year. Yeah.
I want to do a blanket stitch on this, and I'm trying to do it on my sewing machine. She's having trouble with the machine kind of eating her fabric, kind of not looking so great, kind of And I was like, well, you could use stabilizer, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hold up, Lynn. You have a serger. I just sold you a serger. She's like, yeah, so what? And I was like, well, you're just going to put this pearl cotton in here and you're going to, and I said, if you make the length a little longer, it will look blanket stitch like, she came back in this, and then I said, by the way, I love your watch. Okay. Right. And I still have it. She comes back in the store. She's like, Mallory, you don't know how much time you saved me. She was like, she was just so grateful. And then she gave me the watch.
Right.
She gave me
bought like 5,000 pounds
of pearl
cotton.
And it did. It sped up her process so much to finish it like this.
Well, and it looks so good.
Oh, it looked great. And, she was using a contrasting thread and leaving that space. So she wasn't getting the satin stitch look. She's getting more of this blanket stitch look. Now,
which you can do if you have a non-raveling.
To not confuse people, but just to mention this, because someone will look this up and they'll look up blanket stitch on the Serger.
Right.
There's a technique you can do with water-soluble stabilizer and using a flat lock stitch and getting this, but the part that looks like a blanket stitch is your needle thread. It's not your looper thread. Right. So
this is a
different
faux blanket stitch look.
And that's why I was like, let's save this till later. That's what I didn't want to, because I remember not understanding how that other technique worked.
Right.
Once upon a time, Anyway, so this is still just a 3-thread wide, except we're making it very long. 3-thread wide.
Yeah.
But we were making it long just to give that space in there like you'd get with the blanket stitch. So anyway, she was super thankful for that for that tip. The Serger, at least the baby locks, have these stitch fingers to support the stitches. So the stitches are being formed around those stitch fingers.
That's correct.
So even with this heavy thread, she was getting a very nice look.
Right.
Something she's having a little trouble with on the sewing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could have talked to her about using some different feet and, like I said, stabilizer, but this was a
there's just
one
nothing
step
like
process.
This. It's so nice, right?
So anyway.
Plus, you get, you're trimming your edge at the same time, and you're getting that beautiful cut edge. You can't do anything better
it's just
than
perfection. That. Yes. So that was, 3-thread wide. But yeah, if something's not going to fray, you could make it longer. You can make it shorter. If you are using something that's kind of unstable, or you're using a knit, I have done this kind of decorative edge on a knit before. Mm-hmm. It's a little heavy.
Right.
For some knits.
Well, but that's just for anything. I mean, you've always got to test.
Right. But I did use the differential feed is what I wanted to say. I tested and I used the differential feed will help you to not get a distorted look.
Right.
Unless you want a distorted look.
And again, test.
Yes.
So far, well, let's talk about this.
Yeah,
let's talk about
ahead.
how to get these hefty threads through your machine.
You want to? Okay. Yeah.
I would like to approach that, and then later we're going to talk about something else that
you're gonna write down.
Talk about. Yeah.
How the heck do you get these threads through your serger, Mom?
Okay, so if you have any serger other than a baby lock air threading system, right? Which is
like auto threading.
Which is the closed system where you hit the button, it goes and the thread goes through. You're going to have to use a lead wire. Okay, you're going to have to take a wire and probably thread. It's possible not, but I would not think so.
Well, some of those sergers are real open.
Right. It just depends.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to use that lead wire, or as you are threading, you may have to use something to get that thread through the eye.
Yeah.
And one of the things so think about this. It's not like that little skinny thread you're used to.
Right.
So it's bigger, and you're putting it through these hoops and loops and whatever, the eyes and the hooks or whatever's in your system. So be aware of that. So you may, some people use the dental floss threaders to help
or
it
their
get
serger,
through.
like it comes with a dental floss.
Right, it comes with something that looks just like a dental floss threader, or there's those wire needle threaders.
Yes.
So that there are a few ways that you may have to figure out how to get this through your system.
When Mom just said "I" on these sergers, and maybe on your serger at home, it's the eye of the looper. Okay.
Right. And there will be eyes leading up to the looper.
Yes.
And sometimes there's a little wire loop or something like that. They're all, they're all fairly similar, but sometimes there's something that doesn't quite look like the one next to you or whatever.
This won't be the hardest thing you've ever done.
No.
Don't.
If you can thread your loopers, you can thread this. But what I want you to do is that now, the other thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to change your tensions. Okay, you're going to have to fool around with your tensions because you are now putting a thicker thread. I'm talking about non-baby locks here, everybody.
Non-auto tensioning.
Non-auto tension baby
locks.
So if you have an auto tension baby lock, we're going to give you another story here. It's a different
thing
and much easier. So you will have to play with your tensions because you are now putting this thick thread through those discs, right?
Yes.
So it's
going to have an effect on it.
Right. It's going to have an effect on it. So don't just think you're going to thread this through and it's going to be fine and happy unless you have an auto tension, auto threader baby lock.
And, okay, I'll let you finish and I need to talk about auto tension. Or are you ready for me to jump in here?
Well, I just want them to know that.
Yes.
That those things will have to happen.
Okay. Allow me to clarify, like I had to do for someone. This is so funny because in the group, people will get, like an individual will get angry with me about something that happens that has a social context to it.
Yes.
Something about inclusivity or something like that comes up because there's an issue in the group. It has intersected with sewing and I say, oh, we don't allow that type of speech here or da-da-da. And then later they'll try and argue with me about sewing. It has happened multiple times.
Yes.
I can tell they're ready for a fight, okay? So, or the other way around, whatever. But they've become angry with me because they don't like that I, asked someone to use gender neutral language or whatever. Anyway,
I told them that we allow
swearing
profanity
or something like that. So this happened, and it brought up a really great learning point that people couldn't see anymore because she deleted her comment. Anyway, so people asked about auto tensioning,
right?
sergers, and I was like, well,
they actually call it a thread delivery system.
Thread delivery system, right? Said, Baby Lock's the only one with, automatic tensions.
Right.
And then this person said, no, they're not. This other machine, and she named the brand and model number, has auto tensioning. And I was like, I don't believe that's true. And she said, please don't talk about things you don't know about. And I was like, whoa. Whoa, girlfriend. Okay. So I went and looked at the owner's manual of that machine.
Right.
They're online. If you're looking for an owner's manual for your machine, it may very well be online.
Most of them are online now.
And
most of them you can download free. So if somebody's charging you $12, look for a free one first.
Yes. They're charging you to print it. And if you're paying that, if you're cool paying for that, that's fine.
Yeah, if they send it to you printed, but if they charge you $12 and you have to download it and print it, that's what I'm talking about.
Make sure, because a lot of times you get these for free.
Yeah.
Because I looked through it. This machine had automatically set tensions, not auto tension or thread delivery system. So it was like, if one were to say, I'm doing a 3-thread wide, this machine had programmed into it certain tensions it thought would be good for a 3-thread wide.
It's not programmed into it.
Yeah, it was. The knobs moved.
Oh, they did?
Yes. Okay. So that's why I went into this is a newer thing.
All right.
So the knobs moved.
Right.
But it was very much like if the owner's manual told you to put the tensions on 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well.
Then you, okay.
Right.
So while it was automatically sort of programmed, what it was not doing was actually sensing the threads that were being put through the machine.
Right. So it would be automatically programmed for a Serger weight thread.
Absolutely. Which could be helpful. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I would start there for certain.
And you could change the tensions after the fact.
Right.
Not a bad thing. Just, incorrect in our conversation that we were having.
Well, and I will tell you, before 1993 or 4 or whatever it was, that is how I did my tensions.
Yeah.
I would write
down.
Starting point. I had a starting point.
Yeah.
I would write it down.
Great idea.
My regular 3-thread rolled hem, I had these settings. And I had a little notebook, and I had this all written down, and I kept it with my owner's manual. And I would start there. It didn't always end up there, but at least I had a place to start.
Yes. So if you thread your Baby Lock Serger with auto tension and the thread delivery system that we're talking about, when you raise your presser foot, you thread your machine. When you lower your presser foot and the tension discs close. There's a set of springs in there that sense the thickness of the thread. And so then it stitches out perfectly. I mean, I would say 99.9% of the time. Almost 100. It's like
I've never had it perfectly.
Trouble. Yeah,
only if I've threaded it wrong.
Yes. If it's
wrong,
operator,
if it's been operator error.
I was just cover stitching and I messed, and I was like, I messed something up. I rethreaded. It was fine. This is wonderful, especially with these heavy threads, these decorative threads. This is where the thread delivery and the auto tension really shines, because I can switch, and this is what I used to do to, how my mom taught me to demo Sergers. Switch the weight of the thread and never touch a tension disc and still get the perfect stitch. Even, like Mom said earlier, using like pearl cotton on top and normal or lighter weight thread on the bottom. So
you can combo up threads.
Yeah.
There can be a different weight thread in each looper and each needle, and the Baby Lock will sense it for you.
That's right.
So that's the system they have.
So
it's amazing.
I can see why the other, we're making up terms here, right? In the sewing world, like auto tension.
Right.
I understand what that other machine
had.
It's
an auto setting.
It's an auto setting, but it was not, it wasn't individualized.
And, there are no sewing machine police.
Right.
Anybody can call manufacturers can call. We call those stitches decorative stitches in the sewing machines now. They used to be called embroidery stitches.
Right.
And then when home embroidery came in, we
had
to change that.
Right.
So we started calling those the decorative stitches and not the embroidery stitches.
Language is a living thing,
right?
So I don't think it's
and so is our opinion.
That's right. That's right. But oh my gosh. I do not kick people out of the group often. I mean, for as many people as we have and for the breadth of conversation that I allow.
some people live to argue.
It was just very
true.
clear that she was unhappy with me, and that maybe she'd be happier out of the group. But I'm glad.
And maybe she is.
We've gotten.
She might be listening to your podcast. You don't even
know.
know.
I don't think so.
I'm glad she's listening. She's bitching the whole time.
I'm glad we've gotten to clarify that. So that baby lock serger senses it. Versus just giving you kind of a best guess to begin with. So that is when you are, though, messing around with those different weights of threads. Do you have that written down over there? Is that what our next thing?
I don't know.
Well, I just want to say real quick, if you're messing around with the different weights of threads, and you get your perfect stitch length where your pearl cotton is covering on top, but you have normal serger thread behind it, there's going to be space behind there, right? Like, because it's a lighter weight
it'll
thread.
be very open.
I just
want
to clarify that. Yeah. Okay.
It's gonna and again,
and that's fine.
Thread changes things, and fabric changes things.
That's
so anytime you're on a new fabric or using a different thread, it will change something. The other thing we need to address here before people get bent out of shape is, some of these threads you're talking about that are the non-needle threads come on a ball.
Yeah.
They're not on a spool.
No, great.
What are we going to do about this?
Great point.
My favorite thing is to set a margarita glass or a martini glass behind my serger and put my little ball of thread in there, my pearl cotton or whatever it is, and then put it into the thread lift that's on the machine, or sometimes my other thread lift.
Yeah, the thread lift we talk about all the time.
Right, the extra industrial.
I just have to tell you all, if you've noticed our social media presence blossoming, I've been scheduling like 3 posts a day. And I have the thread lift. It's getting shared every month.
Yeah, it gets on there every month.
Because it's so useful.
Now, the other thing is we've used little bowls. You can use a coffee cup.
Mug. Coffee mug's a good.
A coffee mug's good. Little bowls are good. Sometimes when we'd have a big class, we would have the little, short
plastic
cups. They would work.
Little,
So you want something so that ball doesn't run away, or otherwise get interfered with by some other piece of equipment.
So you want it to be safe, but you want
it
to
to
move
corralled.
around. You want it to move around because it's gonna bounce around as that thread comes off.
It needs a little playpen.
Right. Oh,
like the babies.
How many babies can fit in that playpen? Okay, only put one ball. This is okay.
Only one ball
at a time
per cup, right?
Only one baby at a time
per vessel. Only one ball per vessel
when it's being used on the machine.
That's
and then,
right.
If you got 2, you need 2 coffee cups.
Yeah, and you want to make. The reason I like a glass or a cup or something like that is that. Don't do a basket or something anything. You want something smooth so that it can bounce around and roll around, but not, come out of the vessel.
Scandalous. I was like, oh, never would I do that.
I'll put them together.
So ball of pearl cotton. If you buy, Baby Lock used to package some yarn, and you needed to wind it onto something because it was in a packet. And I was kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's just put this on you could put it on a card as long as it's going to wind off okay,
know? So I think another thing Mallory might be talking. So I have a decorative thread that I need to put on a spool.
Yeah.
Right? Then I can put that I can wind that onto a bobbin.
Right.
And then I can, let it feed up on my spool. Or I can put that bobbin in that little cup, too.
Yep.
It'll work that way, too.
In fact...
It'll bounce around.
We've covered this before, I'm sure, at some point, but, some of the heavier quilting threads can be used in this way. But even some of those heavy serger overlock inspirations things, I will let that spool just hop around in a cup because it just doesn't work as nicely on the serger.
Use it the way. That's why you always need a thread lift too.
Well, that too, yes. So I just like to let those hop around in a cup. But we do have a plastic margarita glass behind our serger.
This is right now. It's July, and this is the best time of year to go buy them. They all go on sale.
In July. I would thought winter or something.
Well, no, it's almost August. So all of the picnic wear,
I see.
It starts to go on sale. I remember getting a bunch when we had the shop for 50 cents a piece.
Right. No, and I mean, and
they're so cute.
It's good to do something plastic like that because if things do go awry and it falls, that's good.
You really don't want glass. The thing about glass is no matter how well you think you have cleaned up glass, you could still have glass somewhere.
And But a coffee mug is heavy enough.
Yeah, a coffee mug.
And it's lower
right. We've used coffee mugs a lot.
Table.
And I've used what I call like little rice bowls.
Mm-hmm.
Little things
Actually,
like that.
Missouri Star gave us this thing of swag.
Oh, yeah.
Look.
Is that supposed to be like a teacup?
It's a thimble.
But
it's supposed to be it's supposed to be a coffee cup, but it is a pearl cotton bouncer.
To me, it's like a little custard cup. Yeah, is what I would call it.
Like a ramekin. Yeah, no, isn't that perfect?
See, I would call that a custard cup. Ramekins are flatter and bigger to me.
You're right.
But I think everybody calls everything a ramekin now.
Let's go to Julie Child's cookbook and see what the ramekin illustration looks like.
I'm sure it's all changed. I'm sure it's all changed. So the other thing I want to talk about, is to use your threads as a decorative accent. They do not have to be non-needle threads.
Okay.
So, especially, I'm thinking of a particular ballroom dress I made, where it had several hems on it.
Yeah.
And they were all rolled hems. Actually, they had the fishing wire in them also. And every one of those hems I made a different combination of threads. So they had metallics and they had embroidery threads, but I put all these different colors in them. Now, I didn't have to do any special threading, okay? But
we skipped the
baby lock threading. Right? So, but what I want to say is I didn't have to do any special threading or worry about, the size or weight of my thread in those. But sometimes I use 2 threads in a looper. I've also used 2 threads in a needle, and it's worked for me.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as they're not again, test it out and try. But you can get effects that don't have to be a heavy thread, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and okay, so before we talk about the baby lock threading, I just want to say we had been sort of talking about those flatter finishes, like the 3-thread wide, and then you bring up the 3-thread rolled edge,
right.
And you can mess around with different threads
right.
on the 3-thread rolled edge too,
right.
Okay, or on just
so
about any stitch.
So it does not have
okay?
to be the stitch we've sort of been,
That's right.
talking about over, or sort of making sure that you know how to do. Right.
Hey,
because
how do you get one of those thick threads through baby lock?
I don't know.
I think this episode is going to be sponsored by Baby Lock.
I hope it is.
And we almost skipped the thread lasso technique, right?
So I call it a thread lasso. I'm not sure what they call it.
I think that is one of the names that they or a leader
thread, whatever. So
what you gonna do
with your Baby Lock threads, right?
Yes.
Or loopers? You have an air threading system where it becomes a closed system. It's like a little set of plumbing pipes, basically, and your thread gets shot through there by air, right? So this thick thread doesn't always like to go. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's the same way with anything that's like a fuzzy thread, like a stretch thread. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem to be quite stiff enough sometimes to want to go through, like the air won't carry it through. So what you need to do is you need to make a lasso or a loop or a leader, you'll hear it called.
Yeah.
So you take a length of thread. Usually it needs to be about a yard long.
Yeah.
Okay, or a meter long. You fold it over. You take the 2 cut ends, and a lot of times I cut them together because that's...
So you fold it in half.
Right, fold it in half. So I got the 2 cut ends together, and a lot of times then I clip them to make sure they're nice and sharp and clean and want to go through. And I put those in that little air port.
Yep.
Okay. Now, you need to hold on to this thread. Okay?
Hold on to the loop end.
The loop end. If you don't, and you hit your feeder... Nothing will happen except it'll shoot across the room.
Shoot across the room.
Yeah, so you can sit there and shoot thread across the room all day if you want.
That would be a good video.
Would that be a good video?
Just like shooting threads.
Okay.
Just letting them go.
Yeah. See where they land and what it's like.
Because the upper looper thread.
You could have a contest, like which thread will go farther.
So you activate your threading system on a baby lock. You flip a switch or you press a button. You turn your hand wheel and it puts it in the right position to... thread.
Close the system so it will thread with air.
There will be a big click, okay?
Right.
And so the whole threading system's now enclosed. So the upper looper is like pointed. It's like a little cannon right over the presser foot.
That's
so
right. It's pointed right out into the room.
Yeah. Make sure you hear that big click before you call your dealer and ask why your thread's only going through or not working or whatever.
So anyway, now you've got a hold of the loop. And the other end has come out, either your top looper or your bottom looper, wherever you want to whichever one you're going for, and you need to put that non-needle thread through the loop.
That's right. So what's going on right now is you have the loop in one hand, the thread has continued through the looper system, and the two little cut ends are out over by the needle area and where the loopers are.
So you need to put your non-needle thread through that loop. You need to grab your cut ends, and all you do is just pull it through, and it comes through.
In case it wasn't clear, with your non-needle thread, you've gone through that first part of the tensioning system to thread your serger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking about when you get to the port.
Right, when you get there.
It has to go through everything else, too. And your presser foot is in what position?
It's up.
Yes. Okay. So here's what I do. You know how you'll have, like, your spool is almost naked. It doesn't have enough thread on it to really do anything, maybe a hand worker. I keep one of those spools next to my serger so that I can cut off lead threads.
Yep.
And that's what I use for lead threads, is that spool that just doesn't have enough. I mean, I'm certainly not going to throw my serger with it and, like, make eight stitches and then or whatever.
Okay, and then to get a yard of thread, in case you don't know this, the point from, like, the center of your chest to your fingertip, if you extend your your arm out to, like, parallel to the floor, straight out from your body, okay, that's around 36 inches.
Okay, or you can just do from the end of your fingers to your elbow is half of a yard. So you have to do that
twice.
You double it over anyway.
But, what I do is I just, like, bring it out and
I
cut it.
What I really do...
What do you do?
What I really, really, really do...
What do you do?
Is I put my hand by that port. Airport. Airport? Oh.
Airport.
Anyway, I put my hand holding that leader thread at the airport, and then I pull it past where it's going to be threaded, and I know that's half of what I need, and then I double it over.
Yeah, I think maybe Ovation or Triumph users might need a little longer.
That's why I said and that's actually how I thread. Even when I'm doing my regular threading, is I pull that thread down and I go, the loopers goes this far, and I know I have that much. You need that much slack,
right? So yes,
we could do a video on
thread lasso.
We could really do a video. We could,
and there are videos, but ours will be better, Okay. So anyway, don't, if you have a baby lock with the air threading, don't tie on threads ever.
No, it's not. First of all, it could get stuck. In that closed system. Okay, it might not break. It might just sort of get stuck.
Second of all, it takes like 2 seconds to thread your serger, so you don't need to do it.
It's not
anyway.
a good idea.
Yep, don't do it.
It's not a good idea.
Don't
do tie-ons. Do not do tie-ons.
I've only ever had like one person do that and have a problem with it, and I was like, she's like, oh well. She's been a customer of ours for a while. She said, my friend says she always ties on. I said, your friend doesn't have as nice a serger as you do.
I'm talking about your friend's machine behind her back.
No.
Okay.
I just said, you don't need to do that. But she did. She got, her threads broke, and she got a knot caught in there. And so we just had to get it out.
There's a way to get it out. Yeah, but now, also, everyone you get who has a baby lock with the pneumatic threader, right, you get a very long wire. Okay, that goes through that system. It's an extra long wire. It comes with your machine. It is coiled up, and it's in a little piece of plastic, and it has the little triangle on the end, and then, it's a twisted wire that goes through that system. I tell everybody, don't get it out. Know where it is. Know how important it is. You rarely need it. Okay, rarely need it. Usually you need it if you've tied on and you get something stuck in your system, right? You do not need this to thread with. The looper system will, the lasso system, lead system will always I've never had it not work. If you lose that, it's expensive, and you cannot use a generic wire because a generic wire is not long enough to go through that closed system.
Right.
Okay? So hold on to it. I tell a lot of people, just tape it inside your owner's manual or tape it down someplace. I don't want you to take it out and lay it down and it get lost because it's in a little clear bag and it's a little fine wire, so it can be small. Easy to misplace.
Yep, so small. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good outline of where these thick threads come in doing decorative edges on your serger.
There'll be a comment area where you can send your questions to Mallory.
Oh, okay. Everyone be like, what do I do here? So you can, we did a serger workshop. It was very close to the time, just right before we closed the shop. And people did have another couple brands of sergers in there. And we got them to work after a little bit of,
wasn't a lot of fun, but we got them to work.
Now, the people with the baby locks, they were zooming through and stuff, but it can be done.
Well, and one of those persons that had the other kind of machine
then they
left
bought
with the baby lock.
Right, okay. So, exactly. So, definitely, this is a place I think a lot of people, when they were trying to figure out if the baby lock was worth it to them,
right,
this was a game changer because they wanted to do stuff like this. They were fine with their serger for other things, for just using normal serger thread, but they wanted to do this.
So. Well, this is what happened to me when Baby Lock came out with the air threading system. Is I thought, I can thread my machine. I've got this down. Then I used it. I was like, and my mind went crazy, like, and then I was like, I put in a different thread, and then I did this, and I was like, oh. Like I can actually purchase time. That was my thought. Yes. I'm purchasing time. I can do now. If you don't do all these things or are not excited by them,
right?
Then that's not what's important to you. It was important to me.
We had a client who had an alteration store,
right?
And they'd buy a serger and they'd thread it up with white, and they'd buy another one, thread it up with black. And then they'd run them into the ground and buy a new one.
That's exactly what they did.
They were not interested in those, features. Nor were they interested in, not throwing away the serger.
That's right.
It would cost them more to get it serviced.
Right.
Than, for what they got out of it. So that was interesting. Okay. Well, that's Decorative Threads in the serger. I hope we blew some minds. I hope we,
I hope you can have some fun with it.
Yeah. Because it is a good time. You can find us on Instagram. We're at SoHereCom. And you can email me at Mallory@SoHere.com. Take it away.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit SewHere.com.